Hi, this is Ralph Zuranski. Today I'm interviewing Donna Fox. She's one of the most successful women on the internet, and I've seen her at quite a few different conferences, and some of them she's actually coordinated and put on herself. Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic, and I'm so delighted to be here. It's such an honor to be interviewed by you, Ralph.
Donna, I've always been impressed with just how hard you work and the many things that you do. Do you think it would be possible just to share with the listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do?
I would love to. I've always found it fascinating to hear the story kind of behind the public story of the mentors and the heroes in my life, so I'm happy to share. Whatever you'd like. Ask away.
Well, Donna, there's a lot of good questions, and, Don, it's a real thrill for me to be able to be here and asking you these questions, and a lot of these questions come from the work of Napoleon Hill, who had the opportunity to ask a lot of very rich and famous people how they were able to attain the success that they did in their lifetime. So the first question that I wanted to ask you is, what do you want out of life in 10 words or less?
Well, my goal in life is really to live every day with childlike abandon. You know how children just see such freshness and newness everywhere they look and in everything that they see? Well, I really try to capture that youthfulness and that innocence every day, and that's just the happiness, the ability to take pleasure in seeing an ant on a blade of grass.
That really is good to be able to have that innocence, to be able to see the things that are going on around you and living in the present. What is your dream or the vision that sets the course of your life?
I actually have really very simple dreams. I don't have a big grandiose dream. I don't dream of a huge house or really affecting thousands of people's lives or changing the world or ending poverty. All those things would be nice. My kind of dream life is very simple. It's waking up and eating healthy foods and having a healthy lifestyle full of active yoga in the morning and swimming in the afternoon. It's living in someplace warm. It's having friends over for dinner. It's really just very simple, very basic. It's about enjoying people and relationships and living in the moment.
Well, that is really a wonderful way to live a life with exercise, good food, and good friends. How important is it to stay focused on your primary goal?
I think even more important than the primary goal is to stay focused on the reason why. Because sometimes our goals change, and even our primary goal changes over time. But usually the reason why you want to achieve a goal doesn't change. And whether that be so you can take care of your parents when they need it, or your children, or you can send your grandkids to college, or whatever that goal be for you, and it's different for everyone. That's the thing. That's the reason. That big why is the thing that doesn't change, and that's what's really important to keep in your narrow sights.
Donna, I've done a lot of interviews with a lot of the male heroes that I've met on the internet, and it's funny, it's rare that men have the ability to communicate as well as women. And one of the things that I think that women just excel men in is their ability to follow their hunches and intuition. Do you follow your hunches and intuition?
Well, Ralph, I was never very good at this until recently. I'm actually very kind of left-brained and focused. I like facts and figures and numbers. And as we sit here talking, it's 2006. Well, my goal for 2005, one of my New Year's resolutions, was to listen to my intuition more and really trust my gut when making a decision and check it. At every major business decision, I kind of checked and said, how does this feel? And, in my unexperienced way, that's how I checked my intuition. Now, how does this feel? And I must say, 2005 was the best year so far, and I can only imagine 2006 is going to get better.
I think intuition is an area that a lot of people don't really trust, but it's an incredibly important area because it becomes a part of just your body and your brain working together and telling you the stuff that you really need to hear. What type of specific philosophy or philosophies guide your life?
One of the many philosophies that I live by and continually practice is the Japanese philosophy of Kaizen. Kaizen it's actually a manufacturing term. It's for continuing small little incremental improvements. And how when you measure something in your life and just improve it just a teeny little bit, eventually all those improvements add up. So I really spend every day going, what little thing can I do to improve myself, to improve my relationships, to improve my business today? Just one little thing. It's amazing what one little thing, everybody has time for one little thing. One little bit of improvement every day makes such a tremendous difference in the long run.
Donna, what is your perspective on goodness, ethics, and moral behavior? I know that's a real important question in the world today where everything seems to be expedient. Whatever feels good, just do it. There doesn't seem to be any absolutes as far as what's good or bad or whatever. It seems that a lot of times the only sin is getting caught at doing something that's wrong. What do you think about that?
It's interesting, Ralph. A couple of years ago, I took a values quiz, and there were maybe 30 or so values on a sheet of paper, and we were told to pick out the 15 that were the most important to us. So we automatically crossed off 30 from the list, and then we had to go backwards and say that we asked ourselves the question, what one value could you live without if you had to? And crossed it off. And you got all the way down, and you basically put in reverse orders for your value. It's like if you had to live without a value, which one is it going to be? Well, if I had guessed my values, I would have said my values were education and family and fun, maybe. But I was so surprised to learn that my values were ethics and integrity. Those were my top two values, and I had no idea. But those were the ones that I couldn't get rid of if I had to get rid of everything else. I mean, I had to get rid of my family. Ultimately, it came down to who I was, my ethics and my integrity. And that's the primary value that I have. And I try to do everything from a position of how do I feel about myself after this action. And I think no matter, I don't like the idea of somebody else giving me the rules, somebody else telling me what to do. And when it comes to morals and ethics, I don't think there are black and whites. There are always times when things are going to be different for people. But if I check with myself and follow a code and make sure that I'm always consistent with myself, then I'm being the best person I can be, best person I know how to be.
Donna, what place does prayer have in your life? I know a lot of people try to tune into the spiritual or the entity that's God to them. Do you pray, and how important is prayer for you?
I'm not a particularly religious person, Ralph. That being said, I think you could call what I do prayer, by some people's definitions. I really make a conscious effort to think every day about the things that I'm grateful for in my life, about the wonderful things that have come into my life, and to be sure that I'm open for more wonderful things to come into my life. So if positive thinking and gratitude is prayer, then I am all for it. I think it's highly important to do every single day.
In the world today, there's a lot of people that give their lives for what they do. Firemen rush into burning houses. Policemen put their lives on the line. What are the things that you'd be willing to sacrifice your life for?
Ralph, that question really touches me. I think that if I were a mother, it would be a very easy answer. I would sacrifice my life for my children. And to some extent, I feel like I would sacrifice my life for my family members, my fiancé, the people that I love, even my business partner. But who really knows, when it comes down to it, when you're really asked to give your life. I would love to be able to say I would sacrifice my life for free speech, because I think it's so important. I would sacrifice my life for the freedoms that our country provides us. But who really knows? I should hope that I could live up to that. But I also hope that I never get tested on it.
Boy, that is so true. You never know what you're going to do. You hope that you would do the right thing, but when that moment shows up, it's hard to say what we would do. A lot of people, have given their lives, and sometimes you just wonder, gee, would I have the courage or the ability to do so? So I really appreciate your perspective on that. And I was just curious, are your goals consistent with your beliefs?
Wow. Well, The first answer that comes to mind is I don't know how my goals could be inconsistent with my beliefs. I'm not sure I would set a goal that was inconsistent with my beliefs. But as I think a little bit further, I realize that I've got some goals that I can't imagine accomplishing. And if I can't envision it, then I'm not believing it. So I guess I do have some goals that are inconsistent with my beliefs, not from an ethical or moral standpoint, but just because I'm not big enough for them yet. They're bigger than me right now. They're there, and I guess the process of growing as an individual is growing into your big, hairy, audacious goals.
That's so true. What Earl Nightingale had to say was that people pursue a worthy ideal with excellence and honesty and integrity, and that you have to get to the point where you're providing or producing a quality product or service that is so valuable to society and others that you experience the rewards that you've sought out for. And I know that you're experiencing a lot of rewards now, and I'm confident that you followed that particular pathway and know the Dale Carnegie secret that was given to Napoleon Hill. A lot of these questions come from the same questions that he asked some of the leaders of his time. Are your actions consistent with your beliefs?
Not at all. Every single day I step out on a limb. I once heard that, of course, you have to go out on a limb because that's where the fruit is. Every single day I do something that scares me. There are days that I wake up and this whole business of being an entrepreneur is terrifying. At the same time, I can't imagine doing anything else right now. When I think about going back to a job, it crushes my spirit. So, no, my actions aren't consistent with my belief because I act every day in spite of my limiting beliefs.
Boy, that is so true. To actually get out there where the fruit actually hangs, it does take some risk, doesn't it? And it is a little scary. Well, how valuable is it to have highly charged emotions about the things that you're achieving?
I think emotions are invaluable. Sometimes they get in the way. Sometimes fear, sometimes anxiety. Those are all negative emotions that get in the way. But they're also, emotions move us more than a to-do list. If there was an emotion behind a to-do list, we wouldn't get anything done. But it's emotions that drive us towards something. It's because we want to attain something. It's because we want the emotions of pleasure and success and happiness. And emotions drive us away from something. They drive us away from fear and loneliness and poverty and hunger. So without that emotional response, I think we'd be much less effective as people. So absolutely, super, highly, highly, highly important. And I don't just say that because I'm an emotional woman.
Everybody that goes through life, they suffer misfortunes, setbacks, and they make mistakes. How important is it to take a positive view of the mistakes and misfortunes and just problems that we have during our lifetime?
Well, Ralph, I can tell you that I have spent a lot of money at the University of Adversity over the years. Those lessons from the life's little lessons, the hard ones that you pay with your pocketbook or you pay with your pride, are critical, really. Because I don't think that we change as individuals or we progress as businesses without the adversity thrown in. I don't think we improve without the roadblocks. The trick is to figure out which things are actually adversities that we need to then react to, and what are what I call obstacle illusions, because they're not real. They're just the fears that get in the way. And once you master that, once you master the real adversity from the obstacle illusions, then you've found your key to just growing as a person.
Just about all the motivators and professional speakers tell you that you should have a positive attitude and that you should have optimism. Do you think that it's important to have optimism and a positive attitude?
I think optimism is important. I also think that pessimism is important and realism are important. Anytime you have too much of anything, you put life out of balance. It's good to have optimism because it's kind of what gets you through the rough times. It's good to have pessimism because it keeps you grounded. And most of the time it's good to have realism. So you are aware of all of the influences everywhere. So yeah, I think optimism is equally as important as pessimism.
Everybody has problems in their lives, and sometimes they can be crushing, and just the sorrow that they create, or just the overwhelming feeling that people have. Do you think that it's important to maintain a sense of humor in the face of difficulties?
I think that sometimes humor is the only thing that we can fall back on in sad times. My father passed away a couple years ago, and I felt driven. Something I had to do was to give some remarks at his funeral. And I'm actually, you probably don't know this, Ralph, I have terrible fear of public speaking. Now, I'm a speaker, but I face that fear because I also love to teach and I love to educate and motivate and inspire people. Well, at my father's funeral, I decide that I want to motivate and inspire people. And he was just a great man in his simple way. He spent years of his life, like many fathers, he started in the Boy Scouts when my brother was young. But unlike many fathers, he stayed for 40 years and really devoted much of his life to influencing and guiding young boys and men to grow up into just really amazing adults. And he gave so much to so many. He was a teacher, just like I'm a seminar speaker and a trainer and a teacher. Now, I like to think that I'm following in my dad's footsteps. He was a teacher, too. So at his funeral, I decided that I wanted to deliver a humorous presentation. And we actually closed the event with me mustering up the best courage I could with my fear of public speaking and all of the emotion that went into the day, and delivered a humorous speech about my father. And people still talk about it today. It's the humor in times of sadness that provides, optimism, really, to go back to the last question. It provides the optimism. You kind of face the Murphy's Law and you face the sad times in life, but there's a glimpse of hope and future in humor. And, laughter's the best medicine. It sure is.
Donna, do you invest time in daydreaming about what your life will be in the future?
Well, not as much as you might think. I am actually really happy with my life. Really happy with my day-to-day life. And sure, I have goals that I'd like to achieve. But I think once you reach a level that you're comfortable with, you stop wishing and dreaming. There was a time in my life that I was constantly striving for something else. And it's not even what I have now. It was just something different from what I had then. And I think once you reach a point where you're not striving anymore, you find a place where you fit, then sure, you think about the future and you think about your goals and you hope for them, but you don't dwell on them or daydream about them in the same way because you don't need the escapism anymore.
Donna, do you feel it's important to make positive statements about your future goals and just your future dreams and put them in a positive perspective?
I do think it's important to keep your dreams and your goals and specifically statements about them like incantations about them. Tony Robbins said, even more powerful than affirmations is incantations. If you say something rhythmically and you add body motion, so you've got the audio, you've got a visual maybe in your head, and you add a body motion to it, so you've got a kinesthetic component as well. Now, if you get them all together, it's total body learning. And even the only slight tweak, Ralph, is you said positive statements about your future goals. And I like to make positive statements about my present conditions, even if it's not my present reality at the time. Because if every cell in my being starts to believe it, then it's got to come true.
I know a lot of people aren't very in touch with their subconscious mind, but the subconscious mind seems to have a tremendous power in our lives to manifest the things that we desire and achieve the goals that we're looking to accomplish. Do you take time out to feed your subconscious mind?
This is a great question because I do this all the time. And I add things like, I'll give you an example. Just last week, I was doing an event in a hotel, a seminar in a hotel, and the hotel manager who was handling our account, we just came to heads. We had a disagreement, and I was angry. I was fired up, and I'm a little bit Italian, so when I get angry, I get really angry. And so I'm irate, and I'm storming around, and I snapped on some poor couple who said that the seminar room was cold. I snapped on them, and I thought, I've got to walk away. Well, I walked away, and then I thought, well, I'm just going to take all this anger and put it here in my hand. And I held my hand out and kind of cupped it open. I said, all this anger is just sitting right here in my hand. And I just felt the anger move through my body and land in my hand. And I thought, how easy it is when you've got something like really heavy in your hand and it's a burden to just tip your hand a little bit and let it go. And with that, I tipped my hand and I threw my anger into the garbage can. And that quickly it was gone. And it was gone from my body and it was gone from my day. And, my conscious mind knows that's just silly. But my unconscious mind got rid of the anger. So I do stuff like that all the time to keep me going. It's amazing how quickly you can change your perspective. And it's not enough to say, Donna, get over it. You've got to actually go through the ritual.
I know a lot of people are paralyzed by fear, and they're afraid to do new things or make changes in their life. A lot of times they're actually constrained by the people that are a part of their peer group because they know if they make any changes that they're going to be rejected and they're going to go ahead and suffer a certain amount of punishment from their family and friends. Do you think that it takes courage to pursue new ideas?
There is no question that it takes courage to pursue new ideas. Not one single question in my mind. But courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is proceeding forward in face of and in spite of fears. And we all hear messages from, it's said that you're most like the 5 people you hang out with. So if you'd like to improve yourself, hang out with better people. Well, the natural consequence of that is it leaves the old 5 people behind. And it's kind of sad. If you think about it, if I think right now that I might leave the 5 people that are closest to me behind as I grow, it's very, very sad. But you can't bring them with you. They've got to come on their own. And what I've found, Ralph, as I kind of move through these people as I grow, and friends come in and out of my life, and I love, like my friends from high school, I don't talk to any of them anymore. I still love them all dearly, but they're not close friends any longer. They've moved out of my life, and people move in and out of your life at all times. But what I found is the people that are moving in my life are always really amazing and really interesting and fascinating people. And some of them can move on to the next level with me, and that's what you really hope for. You hope to find those people that can continue to be the 5 people in your life that you'd most like to be like.
Are you willing to experience the discomfort in the pursuit of your dreams that occurs when you have to make those changes and leave those people behind? I know a lot of people, they're just trapped in their relationships and they just can't get out. How do you get out of the relationships, or how do you deal with that? Because I know it is sorrowful, not only for you as a person, but also the people that you do have to leave behind.
It's a great question, and I would love to say I had some kind of magical system that I use or way of looking at it. But frankly, Ralph, what I found is mostly I don't notice. Just all of a sudden I realize, hey, I haven't spoken with this person in a while. and realize that I've moved on, or maybe they've moved on. I mean, who knows? Maybe we've each moved on in different directions. But when we get caught up in our day-to-day activities, sometimes those big changes we don't notice, and they're big changes for the good, or sometimes even big changes for the worst. I mean, I know we've all had the experience where suddenly we're 10 pounds heavier than we used to be, and we certainly didn't see them going on ounce by ounce. So I don't really notice that loss enough to be able to comment on the occurrence of it.
One of the big problems that a lot of people have is procrastination. They just procrastinate. We meet a lot of them at these seminars where they buy these big packages for a lot of money, and when they get home, they just sit them on the shelf and never open them ever to do anything. Do you think that it's important and valuable to make decisions quickly?
I think that it is definitely a major success principle to be decisive in nature. And quickly is relative. You might decide what you want from a restaurant menu in 15 seconds, and that could be quick. You might take a minute, and that could still be quick to some people. You might decide about, say, moving into a new home and making a decision about a home. That could take months. So quickly is relative. I think what's most important is to decide. And if you're having trouble, as you're listening to this and having trouble making decisions in your life, start with the small ones. Start making decisions with a menu. Sit down and say, I'm only going to look at this menu for 30 seconds, and then make a decision. And just force yourself to make decisions that don't matter, because ultimately most decisions in life really don't matter. They're small things. And what's that book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff? No. So being decisive does help. And you also asked about procrastination. And I've found the key to procrastination, to overcoming procrastination, because you're right, we all do it. We all procrastinate, especially we internet marketers, because it's so easy to start our day and start reading email. And next thing we know, we're surfing the web and we're reading people's blogs. And all of those things are valuable things to do, but they don't build our business's bottom line. So I took a cue from Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy has a book called Eat That Frog. And what he says is, if you have a number of frogs to eat, if you take the biggest, ugliest frog first, then all the other frogs seem easier. Well, I like to call that concept kiss the frog, which is a bit more palatable. And sometimes when you kiss a frog, you get a prince. So each day I have my frogs, and I line up 4 or 5 frogs of the day. These are things that I'm most likely to procrastinate on. But they're also things, I try to make them things that generate revenue for my business, that actually move me forward. And if I take the biggest, ugliest one that I'm most likely to procrastinate on and get it done first thing in the morning, before I open an email, before I do just about anything other than drink some coffee, well, suddenly my whole day is better because I've got something done right away. And it's just that simple restructuring of my day. That's the first thing that I do. That makes all the difference. It's back to that idea of little tiny improvements. Kaizen. My friend would call it the butterfly effect. How one little thing that you can do right now can make a tremendous difference in the future. And it also makes a tremendous difference in procrastination.
Well, Donna, it sounds like you make decisions fairly fast, but take a fair amount of time deciding and making sure that you do make a good decision. Well, you never know what the outcome of the decisions are. I guess that's the weird thing about decisions. Don't know which way they're going to turn, and we see so many people that they vacillate. They're making decisions, they're changing their mind, making decisions, changing their mind. How slow do you revise or reverse important decisions that you make?
Gosh, that's a great question. Because I'd like to think that I can recognize when I'm being fearful of a decision, that I've made the wrong decision, versus knowing that I've made the wrong decision. But who really knows? I think it's important to have flexibility. And thankfully, as internet marketers, we have a lot of flexibility built into our lifestyle. And we've got this phrase in our business where we start to vacillate about a decision. We just simply say, it's testable. And that's ultimately what it's about. Who cares if I've made the right decision? It's more important that I've made a decision to go forward. And if I want to question the decision, in most cases it's something that I can test and let the market decide who's right.
I think everybody in their lives faces doubts and fears. I think that's a common fate of mankind, to doubt themselves and also just to fear just about everything. It seems that the media, TV, radio, newspapers, everything that you see, it's based upon the concept is if it bleeds, it leads. That's why I created the Heroes program, to spread good news at a grassroots level. How do you overcome your doubts and fears?
Well, Ralph, frankly, I overcome them by giving in to them. Every once in a while, I just let myself break down. I let myself feel all of the anxiety. I let myself be that scared little girl that's still inside me. And by letting myself feel it and kind of giving a nod to that side of myself, it allows me to not repress those feelings every other time. Now, every other time I can focus on the good feelings and I can focus on moving forward despite those fears. And I really think sometimes you just need a good cry. You just need to hide under the covers. I mean, I've spent days under the covers just because the world seemed too scary and too big. And I didn't want to. I probably do this every 5 or 6 weeks. I'll spend a day under the covers because that side of me needs it. Now, you need to nurture all the sides. You need to nurture the positives, but you kind of need to nurture the fears too, because remember, we move toward positive things, but we also move away from the fears. So it's really important to acknowledge that they're there, because we remember what's pushing us.
It seems that in life and also in business, that we can't be successful unless we have other people in our lives. And ultimately, success, if you're marketing something, is understanding what your customers want, trying to get inside their head and see what it is that they do want, and provide a product or service that provides them the value that's not only a solution to the problem they have, but provides them real great value. And I know in the process of working with people, either we do or other people do, they upset, offend, and oppose us. And how important do you feel that forgiveness is?
I think forgiveness is really kind of crucial to my business sanity. I mean, I've had those moments where just recently somebody is infringing on one of my trademarks, and that's huge. I'm angry with that person, but I've come to forgive them, and it's relatively recent. I mean, it's still going on. He's still infringing on my trademark, even now as we speak, but forgiveness is important for me, not for him. He doesn't care if I forgive him. He really doesn't. But I need, and it's kind of the process of letting go of the anger, letting go of the hurt. And when I got started, I used to get mad at people who opted out of my list. Opted out, now I rejoice in it. Now I look at it like, good, I don't want somebody who doesn't want me. So it's just a process that we go through where we get these little small hurts, and then we realize that they're just that. They're small hurts, and we don't have to be hurt by them. So then we kind of forgive them globally. I've forgiven everyone who ever will in the future opt out of my list. It's just not a hurt any longer. And I think it helps us grow to be able to forgive. But if I was still, now, years after starting being an internet marketer, getting upset every time somebody opted out of my list, I wouldn't move forward. So forgiveness really helps us learn from an experience and take the next steps forward.
Well, that's kind of an interesting perception. I don't think I ever got mad at the people that opted out of my list. I was just thankful that somebody opted in. Do you experience service to others as a source of joy?
My service to others is education and enlightenment. And there is no joy like seeing the aha in somebody's eyes, especially when you're not so much educating, but actually trying to transform and have an emotional experience, and for the light bulb to go on, for the click, for the eureka moment, for the aha, whatever you want to call it. But when you see the clarity in the eyes of your audience or your student or your mentor, that's about the most rewarding thing I can think of. That's what keeps me going in this business, no question.
You know, a lot of people, they go through life and they have a lot of trials and tribulations, and some people, they never survive an event that occurred in their lives. Their whole life becomes about that one failure or that one injury or that one thing that somebody did to them. When was the lowest point in your life, and how did you change your life to one of victory?
Well, there have been quite a few low points in my life. I'll just work reverse chronologically until you decide to stop me because it's too depressing. Just as early as 2 years ago, I had just published a book, From Credit Repair to Credit Millionaire, and I was broke. I had left my job in 2001 to start a business, and I had some savings. My ultimate goal was to start a business and go back to work. But then September 11th happened. The marketplace changed. When it was time for me to go back to work, there were just no jobs available in my field. So I decided to keep working on my business a little bit more. And that's actually when I started and got involved in the Internet and got involved in speaking and training and found that I loved it. But at that time, right when I had published that book, I hadn't had income for 2.5 years. Not a dime in income for 2.5 years. I was living on credit cards, Ralph. Literally, cash advances on credit cards and shuffling them around and almost ironically practicing my credit millionaire strategies to keep my head above water while I'm trying to build a business, teaching other people how to make millions of dollars by borrowing money. So there's just this very interesting time in my life where I struggled with feelings of like I was a fraud. Now, who was I to tell people about wealth building when I've got, $40,000 in credit card debt because I've been living off of them for 3 years? Then I realized that that's exactly why I'm the right person, because I'm teaching people about how to use credit. And I may have $40,000 in credit card debt, but it's basically business debt because it's money that I was essentially paying myself a salary. I mean, I could have loaned it to my business and then paid myself a salary if I wanted to do it that way. So it's kind of hard to think about the low points because after you get over them, you tend to find the positive in them. Another low point in my life was right after I graduated from law school. I was also getting a divorce, and it was just a terrible time in my life. My husband and I loved each other so much, but we just could not be married. Turns out we never really should have been married. We should have just been friends, and now he's a great friend of mine. We're best friends practically. But at that time, it was so low, and I felt scared because I had just gotten out of law school. I didn't have a job, so I was job hunting. I was going to be alone. I had tremendous debt over my head from my student loans. And, yeah, there were some of those days where I hid under the covers. It was just a tremendous low point. But it passed, and it, if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. Well, it made me stronger, And the last one I want to talk about is not something I have ever said publicly before, ever. So this is a first. It's a first for In Search of Heroes. When I was 16 and in high school, I got pregnant. And I first thought about an abortion, and that didn't feel right. Remember I said I like to check my decisions based on my feelings, and nothing felt good about that. But I'm also, I had plans. I had plans in life, and a baby was not part of the plans. So I made the decision to give the baby up for adoption. And probably I'm not going to get through this without crying. I went through an open adoption, so I actually interviewed and picked the parents for my daughter. And probably the lowest point in my life was doing, like, the hardest thing I've ever done was actually hand my daughter over into the arms of her new mom. And God, I just thought the world was going to end. That nothing could be good after doing something like that. But then I remembered it was really the way to give her the best life I possibly could, and also give me a chance, because I was still a baby too, and I needed to give myself a chance. So yeah, it was this just tremendously low time, and as this knocked up teenager, I felt like a screw up, like you would not believe. But now, because I've done an open adoption, and actually my daughter turns 18 this year, so there's a chance she might come back into my life. But because I've done an open adoption, every year I get pictures, and every year I saw this wonderful little thing that caused me so much pain, grow into this amazing individual. And I think that's what adversity in life is about. It's that thing, like real change doesn't happen until there's adversity. And real growth, she could go on to change the world. Maybe it's not my job to end poverty. Maybe it's hers. And if I hadn't experienced that adversity, that amazing life wouldn't have happened, and I wouldn't be who I am now. I got so much growth and strength from that experience that if I had just kind of skated through my high school years, I don't know if I'd be here today. So, gosh, yes, adversity is, it sucks when you're in it. There is nothing worse than when you're at the life lows. But, man, when you can look back and realize how far you've come, and you will come far, because you can't stay low. The human spirit's too strong to stay low. And when you look back and think about just the amazing things that have happened, you just have to embrace those adversities. You have to embrace the low times in your life.
Donna, was there anybody that gave you the willpower to change your life when you're going through all those traumas? Where did you get your strength just to overcome those?
I really wish I could say that there was this strong mentor in my life at those hard times, that there was a driving force, somebody to lean on. But I think in hard times, more than any other time, you feel alone. And when I think back on those times, the only person I leaned on was me. It was the only person I had the ability to lean on at that time, because if I felt like the only person in the world, and in hindsight, when I was a teenager, my mother was there, and she would have helped, but I didn't ask for it. I didn't reach out. And when I was going through a divorce, my family could have helped, my friends could have helped, but I didn't ask for it. I didn't reach out. I got a little bit better later on as I was going through financial troubles and feelings of fraud. And at those times I shared those feelings with my business partner and my fiancé, who mostly couldn't really understand them. Because they saw the me that I see now. They saw the me outside of the adversity. And I think that's important to remember when you go to people to help. They're going to see the positive in you, because people do. They see the positive in you. And at a time when you're really low, you might not be ready to hear that. So ultimately, during those down times, I turned to me. And I still think of myself as being the only asset that I have that no one will take away from me. Really try to focus on improving me and building me and growing me. Because if I'm all I've got, I've still got something pretty good.
I know you've been very successful in the last couple of years after you overcame the credit millionaire sort of like epiphany that you were the right person at the right time because you're experiencing exactly what you were writing about. It seems that a lot of people teach exactly what they need to know at the time that they need it, and that's why they're the best teachers, because they're actually going through it at that time. How important was it at that time, especially the last couple of years, was it to believe that your financial dreams would eventually become reality?
The whole time I was really struggling to be an entrepreneur, living off of credit cards, I only looked at the job ads 3 times. And I quickly remembered what I was, running away from. The fear of being stuck in a job, working a lot of grueling hours for somebody else and making a living instead of making a life. That kept me focused. It kept me motivated. I did kind of turn to the dark side and look at the want ads every once in a while. When I thought it would be nice to go out for dinner once in a while for a change, but ultimately it was that I knew that the best thing for me would be to make it successful. And in 2005, which was really a pivotal year for me, I made a decision not to renew my law license that year. And I took away my safety net. Now, instead of swinging from trapezes and knowing that there was a net underneath me, I took the net away. And I grew tremendously. Once I was willing to get rid of that safety net and know that I had to catch the other trapeze as it was coming, there was nothing saving me but making it work and being successful. And ultimately, I think that was, I believe that moment was my tipping point. At that moment, I told the universe that I was serious about it. And it's made all the difference.
How important is it to know exactly how much money you want to gain and by what time, to set a specific time and date for the completion of your financial goals?
Goal setting is an interesting thing. I once read that people who set goals, and they set 1-year goals and 5-year goals and 10-year goals, now they always fall short of the 1-year goals. They're usually about right on the 5-year goals, and they blow away their 10-year goals when the 10th year comes around. That being said, the studies seem to show that all the people that make goals are far better off than the people who don't make goals. So I think it's important to have a number in mind, something that you're shooting for. Whether it's the right one, don't get bogged down on the right one. Just decide on one. So that you have something that you're moving forward to. And you won't make it in a year, because we don't make our 1-year goals, but we make our 5-year goals, and we exceed our 10-year goals as long as we make them.
Well, Donna, you were one of the people that I considered one of the heroes that I met on the Internet, just because you always seemed to have such a wonderful smile and just seemed to be a light in the world of so many people at the seminars. And I was curious, so what is your definition of heroism?
I think a hero is someone who does something that's amazing. And whether that be the tiniest little thing, if it's amazing to me, they're my hero. I try to see the hero in everyone, like see the Buddha in everyone. It's very similar. Everybody has got something about them that sparkles, something about them that's incredible. And it's just finding that gem, that little diamond inside everyone that, everybody's a hero. So that's my definition of hero. It's everyone.
Donna, when you were a young person, I know that you had some major difficulties that you had to overcome, especially in what you shared with us about the baby. I know in my life I had a lot of problems initially as a young person. I didn't have many friends, and I read a lot of the comic books, so I created my own superhero in my own mind that helped me overcome life's difficulties. Did you have any type of hero in your youth that you created, a fictional hero or somebody in your life that really helped you a lot?
I have always been a huge fan of Wonder Woman. From the time that I was a little girl till now, if you go and look at my computer, my desktop on my computer is a picture of Wonder Woman. I sometimes open my seminars with Wonder Woman as my opening screen, like the title screen where my name would be. I've got Wonder Woman because she's my alter ego. Not only is she beautiful and amazingly powerful, but she's got that great lasso of truth. So she can always get to the bottom of things. She can always find out the ethical, the integrity, the truth in any situation. And, those being my kind of highest values, I really honor the honesty of the lasso and kind of wish that I'd had it all through my life, to be able to have that lasso of truth. I think Wonder Woman is just the concept of a Wonder Woman is someone that causes awe, that causes wonder, amazement. And that can be so many things. Like, for me, every mother is a Wonder Woman. Because I'm not a mom. And I don't deal every day with what it must be like to raise children and to have a household. And I'm in awe of every mother that manages to manage their business of their home, as well as, in some cases, and well, frankly, most cases in this world, some other type of job or career or business on the side. They're all Wonder Women to me. All women are Wonder Women because they're all just amazing.
That is a funny story. I know that I created my own character and to overcome the adversities of life, and it seemed that just by living as that character, that created more adversities than it solved. But, it was quite a learning experience. Donna, who are the heroes in your life now?
I truly see heroes everywhere. I mean, my fiancé is my hero. He takes care of me. He keeps my life light. Where I am prone to be a workaholic, he brings levity in simple things. My business partner is my hero. He keeps drive and motivation in me, and inspiration and brilliance. I mean, I'm constantly amazed at Polly's brilliance. So he's one of my heroes. I mean, Ralph, you're one of my heroes for putting the site together. This program is incredible. If there's one little thing that I can say that can help inspire someone to find the hero inside them, then, I mean, you're amazing. You're the hero, Everyone around me is my hero. If I can just figure out what lesson they have to teach me. And that's the real trick. And sometimes when I think, and we've all been in those situations where we're like, this person has nothing for me, I'm just going to get out of it. I try to remember that they've got something to teach me, or they wouldn't be in front of me. Everybody's got something to teach me. Just need to figure out what it is.
You just talked about the heroes in your life, and I totally agree that everybody has that potential hero within. And one of the goals of the program is to help everybody realize that they too can be a hero as far as just helping others. That's probably one of the fastest way to become a hero. How important is it to have trusted friends or a mastermind group?
Napoleon Hill on his deathbed said that the mastermind was the key to success. It was the element, the surprise, the secret of the rich. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, especially as internet marketers, it's so easy to stay alone in front of our computer. And there's so much busy work we could be doing. But ultimately, nothing really happens when you stay at home. You've got to get out. You've got to meet people, because people are who we learn from. And we learn that we're not alone in our process. We learn that somebody has been through everything before. I mean, as individual as adversities may seem, and as individual as problems may seem, people go through them. And people pave the way for us. And we need to be out and around people constantly. I mean, one of the things, as I teach real estate investors, we're told that we need our team, and we need our team of accountants and attorneys and lawyers. And I say throw out the idea of needing a team, because you've already got one. The whole world is your team. Everyone out there is available to you as a team member. And most people are so willing to help you if you're just willing to ask. And absolutely, masterminds are the most valuable thing. And when you open up your mastermind from a tiny little group to the world is your mastermind, there's nothing you can't get the answer to.
I really love your concept that everybody's a hero and has that hero potential. Who do you feel in our society today are the real heroes that aren't getting the credit that they deserve, or the rewards that should be given to them and just lavished upon them for the good things that they're doing for others?
We could be here a long time for this list. I mean, teachers, parents, teenagers, mothers, single fathers, children. There are amazing heroes that are children out there that don't get the attention they deserve. Because sometimes being a hero is really just about moving forward and doing something for others, and even doing something for yourself in the process. So every child that lends a hand to another child, and children can be pretty cruel. My gosh, a child that's kind is a hero, and nobody rewards that. We don't reward our police officers and our firemen, the people that are saving our lives, nearly as much as we should be. Or the pilots and the stewardesses that make airplane travel great, or the staff in hotels that keep the bathrooms clean for us, or the ticket taker in the subway station, or the people who keep the roads clean. Everyone does something to help us. We don't realize how many people touch us all day long. Gosh, there aren't nearly enough sung heroes in this world. Far too many unsung heroes. Just far too many.
I do love your perspective on heroes, Donna, and it's my same perspective too. I wanted to ask you, why are heroes so important in the lives of young people?
I think heroes are the first time when we as young people learn to think big. When a little boy puts a towel around his neck and pretends to be Superman, it's the first time that he's thinking beyond his abilities. He's hoping to be something amazing and incredible. And when we start little with the heroes in our imagination, and now we're talking about heroes in the kind of traditional sense, the people that are truly amazing or superheroes, they teach us to stretch. And when we talk about heroes kind of in the our sense of it, that everybody's a hero, it's really important for us to be heroes for children because they need to learn how to be adults. And everyone will teach them. So it's important that we know what they're teaching them.
Donna, what are the things that parents can do that will help their children realize that they too can be heroes and make a positive difference in the world today?
I think that the best thing that a parent can do is to realize that they're communicating even when they're not talking. And it's not the messages that we give to our children directly, but indirectly that make the most impact. Now, kids are so smart. Their brains are just big sponges, and they're soaking up everything. And they're soaking up not only what we say, but how we say it and what we do. And they observe us, and they model us because they want to be adults. So the best thing that a parent can do is be the person that they would like their children to grow up to be. You know? And actually, Ralph, you had asked me a while ago about who my models were, who my role models were, and I think my role model is the person that I would like to be if and when my daughter decides that she wants to meet me. And for the last 18 years, I've been thinking about, gosh, what will she think when she learns that her birth mother is this, or is that, or does this? So, even in an indirect way, I don't consider myself a parent, because parenting is so much more than giving birth. I'm an egg donor at best, an incubator. But even with that little bit, that little part that I have that I feel responsible over being a role model, that's my driving force. Every day I think I need to be a person that I want her to grow up to be. I want her to be proud of me. And every parent can do that. They can be the person to make their son or daughter proud. That's the best thing they can do.
Donna, how do people actually become heroes from your perspective?
Well, being heroic is really about rising to an opportunity. It's about being the right person at the right time. So people become heroes because an opportunity presents itself. So their innate heroism becomes apparent. But really, all people are heroes. They're just waiting for that opportunity to show it. And some actively show it. Some recognize their own internal hero, and they pursue displaying that. Because of what heroism is, it's really being kind of brave and selfless and teaching and educating and motivating. And some people see that and they strive for it and they work for it. But by far, most people become a hero because what's already inside them has the opportunity to shine.
Well, Donna, how does it actually feel to be recognized as a hero? I know a lot of the people that I've recognized the heroic capabilities within them, that when I said, I wanted to interview you as a hero, they didn't say, well, I'm not really a hero. I don't really feel that I deserve to be interviewed by a hero. But, over the years of the people that I've asked that said no, in the intervening years, they come up to me at the conferences and you say, Ralph, I think I'm getting close to my hero's interview. And it's funny how somebody having a particular perspective about somebody, just like in your life, when they saw how special you were but you didn't see it in yourself, that it's amazing how big of a difference it has what perspective other people have about you and how important that is in helping to shape who you are and who you become. So how does it actually feel to be recognized as a hero?
That's a great question, Ralph. I remember when you asked me to do a hero's interview, and I was tremendously flattered, tremendously touched. I didn't for a moment think that I didn't deserve it, though. Because who am I to say whether or not I'm a hero? It's not my role to decide if I'm a hero or not. You saw something in me, and, I love you for that. That's great. Maybe somebody else won't. But heroism it's very personal. You may like Superman. You may like Batman, and to many people, Batman's nothing because he didn't have any special powers, but he had great toys. So maybe that makes him a hero to you. Well, people, the real life heroes, not the superheroes, they're the same way. It's very personal whether or not you decide someone is a hero, or like we like to think everyone's a hero. So it feels wonderful. It feels wonderful that you recognized that in me. And it's very special, and I'm so appreciative.
Donna, why do you think I recognized you as a hero?
Ralph, that's not an easy question, because I truly don't know why you asked for this interview. I can make lots of guesses. I can make lots of guesses based on things that, I'd like to be recognized for. No, you didn't know about my adversity when you asked me. So it wasn't that I'd overcome adversity. No, so you didn't know about, hardly anything at all about me, actually, when you asked me to be a hero. So what I can guess you noticed is that I show up. Simply that I'm there, that I'm making an effort and hitting some balls out of the park every once in a while. But I show up to the practices, and I think that's what you noticed.
Well, that's true, Donna, but there is something else that was even more extraordinary that caused me to choose you as one of my heroes. And it was not only just showing up to the game, but it's showing up to the game with a specific type of attitude. And I don't think I've ever been at any one of the conferences where I didn't see you smiling and just touching people and passing on good energy to the people that you're in contact with. And that was one of the things that I liked about you, and I liked about Polly too, is that you're just so involved with other people and just working to make them feel better about themselves. And so you're going around and helping people to become heroes just in the process by doing what you do. So not only do you show up, but you show up with a great attitude. And that makes all the difference in the world. Well, how will being recognized as an Internet hero change your life?
Well, I've always wanted a cool title. There was a time in my life when I wanted to have business cards printed up that said Donna Fox, Intellectual Gumshoe. Sort of thought that would be a great title. But now I can have business cards that say Donna Fox, Hero. And how cool is that? Aside from the, jokes aside, I think that it's a tremendous honor to be recognized as one of your heroes. But with all due respect, it's life as usual. It's not about how it affects my life. It's about how it may affect somebody else's life. And that's what makes it a great honor.
Donna, other than making people really feel great when you meet them and talk to them at the different conferences, is there any other way that you're making the world a better place?
I try to make the world a better place just by being the best me I can be. And really just trying to touch people from a position of light, from a position of good. Because life is way too short, and we don't know when our last day is. We don't know when we're checking out. And it's too short to be burdened by problems and negativity and stress and angst and all of those negative feelings that, while it's important to recognize and to feel them once in a while, not to dwell on them. So being nice is the way I make the world a better place.
There seems to be a lot of major problems occurring in our society and just in our world today. Do you have any good solutions to the problems that are facing society, like spousal and child abuse, poverty, hunger, all the different things that seem to be keeping people down and not giving the opportunities to fulfill the God give them abilities that they have that would make them just amazing people like you talk about.
Whew, and now I feel the burden of being a hero right there. Wow. There's a lot of weight to that question. On some basic level, there are, we all have needs. And the need for the food and shelter, clothing, warmth, love is so profound and so strong that we can't think past it if those aren't met. And I don't know the cure for hunger. I don't know how to clothe or house everyone on the planet, but I do know how to love them. That's the one thing I can pretty much figure out. Nothing is going to be wrong with a world where there's more love. And from love, other things get figured out. It's from a position of love that charities are created. It's from a position of love that someone finds the hero in themselves and goes on to do extraordinary things. And without that basic emotion being met, there's all of the evilness in the world, all of the pain and the bad stuff, all of the spousal abuse, all of the child abuse, it all comes from a place that's other than that. So, much like I say, almost jokingly, but actually quite serious, I make the world a better place by being nice. Gosh, we would all make the world a better place if we would just have a little more love, be a little more nice.
That's a great answer, Donna. The world definitely needs a lot more love, that's for sure. Love for ourselves and love for everybody else. If you had 3 wishes for your life in the world that would instantly come true, what would they be?
Okay, my 3 wishes. I wish for more discipline, to be able to really use my powers for good. I wish for more patience to really be able to impact and create those aha moments in the people that really need them. And I wish for a receptive vessel in humanity. Because there are so many people that have so much good to do, and I think that sometimes we get closed off from being open to good because of media messages and just all of the trouble out there. So I wish that people were more receptive to.
Well, Donna, I really appreciate your time, and I was just curious, what do you think about the In Search of Heroes program and its impact on youth and families and parents and kids and businesses?
I think the Search of Heroes program is truly phenomenal, that you are able to, really see the hero in everyone, but then allow that heroism to kind of trickle down, and to, the seed of heroism gets planted at a very young age. But whether that seed gets the water and the soil and the nutrients it needs to grow is really up to the lessons that we teach young people as they grow. The seed's there, but do we feed it? Do we nurture it? And the In Search of Heroes program is going to do exactly that. By telling every story of every person that's phenomenal, and every person is phenomenal, it builds and it grows. if there's one person out there that hears this interview and thinks, well, Donna's not all that special, and look what she did. She's pretty successful. I can do that too. That's priceless.
Well, Donna, that's just very special. And I wanted to ask you just one parting question. Do you have a life goal you want to achieve before you die?
It's a great question. And, it's kind of the funny thing about goals. Once you make them, there's another one right around the corner. And I hope my life goal is so that there's always another goal right around the corner. I don't want to ever be done. I don't want to ever retire. So that's my goal, to have another goal.
Well, again, Donna, I'm just so appreciative of your time and just the incredible value of your answers. I'm so excited about being able to interview successful women that I've met at the Internet conferences and women that are tremendous role models to the young women coming up, because there's a lot of men on the Internet that are successful, and it's been hard finding women that are as successful as the men, and it just is so critical to have female role models like yourself. So I really thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ralph. It's really important that we recognize that society recognizes success in dollar figures, and success isn't always about the money. As much as we like to think it is, and it's inspirational that it is, because we imagine that our lives will be different if there's money in them. Really, some of the greatest successes, like Mother Teresa, didn't have money, and absolutely she's a success story. She's truly a hero in anyone's book. And I think when more people realize that heroism comes from within and isn't about your checkbook, your bank account, or the car that you drive, but about the people you touch, suddenly those female heroes will start popping out of the woodwork. I hope that for you, and thank you so much for having me be part of this. It's been truly my pleasure and a lot of fun too.